Welcome to Dream Tale Sleep Stories. Tonight's reading is A Robot's Big Mistakes. Settle into your bed or sofa and let your shoulders, jaw, and eyelids grow heavy. Inhale slowly, 1, 2, 3, and sigh the air away, allowing the day to fade into quiet dark. With every soft inhale, you invite fresh English phrases. With every gentle exhale, stray thoughts drift farther off. Behind my voice flows a gentle theta wave melody, renowned for guiding the mind toward deep relaxation. Soon the music will shift into soothing alpha wave tones, carrying you toward a calm shoreline of dreams. Keep your eyes closed or follow the captions, whichever feels right. Simply receive the rhythm and resonance of the language. Deep in rest, tonight's phrases will take root like seeds, ready to bloom into stronger English skills with the morning light. When you feel settled, hold that unhurried breath and allow yourself to drift into the tale. A Robot's Big Mistakes begins now, and when the story's final line has faded, the music will linger a little longer, carrying you gently deeper into sleep. A Robot's Big Mistakes. The Johnson family had always been busy. Mr. Johnson worked long hours at his office. Mrs. Johnson taught at the local high school, and their two children, Emma and Jake, had school, homework, and after-school activities that kept them running from morning until night. The house was always messy. Dishes piled up in the sink, and laundry seemed to multiply faster than they could wash it. "We need help, Mrs. Johnson announced one evening as she looked around their cluttered living room. "I can't keep up with everything anymore." Mr. Johnson nodded tiredly. "What about hiring a housekeeper?" "Too expensive," Mrs. Johnson replied. "But I saw an advertisement for something interesting today." She pulled out her tablet and showed the family a bright, colorful advertisement. "Look at this, the Alfred 3000, the world's most advanced household robot. It can clean, cook, do laundry, and even help with homework." 15-year-old Emma looked skeptical. "A robot? Really, Mom? That sounds like something from a science fiction movie." 12-year-old Jake, however, was immediately excited. "That would be so cool. Can we really get a robot?" "According to this advertisement, it's much cheaper than hiring a human helper," Mr. Johnson said, reading over his wife's shoulder. "And it never gets tired, never calls in sick, and never asks for a vacation." The advertisement showed a sleek, silver robot with a friendly digital face, effortlessly performing household tasks while a happy family relaxed nearby. The robot in the pictures seemed perfect. It was vacuuming with one arm while dusting with another, and its digital face showed a pleasant smile. "It says here that the Alfred 3000 has been programmed with over 10,000 household skills," Mrs. Johnson read aloud. "It can learn your family's preferences and adapt to your specific needs. And look," Jake pointed excitedly at the screen, "it can even walk the dog and water the plants." Emma rolled her eyes. "I still think this is a bad idea. What if it breaks down? What if it doesn't work properly?" But the rest of the family was already convinced. Mr. Johnson was imagining coming home to a clean house and a cooked dinner. Mrs. Johnson. Johnson was thinking about having more time to grade papers without worrying about household chores. And Jake was dreaming about having a robot friend who could help him with his science projects. That weekend, they drove to the electronics store downtown. The salesman was enthusiastic about the Alfred 3000, explaining all its features and capabilities. He demonstrated how the robot could be programmed using a simple tablet interface. The Alfred 3000 is completely user-friendly, the salesman assured them. Just tell it what you want it to do, and it will learn your preferences within a few days. It has artificial intelligence that allows it to make decisions and solve problems independently. The robot came in a large box with "Assembly Required" printed in big letters on the side. Mr. Johnson was confident he could put it together easily. But when they got home and opened the box, they found hundreds of small parts and an instruction manual that was over 200 pages long. Maybe we should have paid for professional assembly, Mrs. Johnson suggested, as she watched her husband struggle with a particularly confusing diagram. But Mr. Johnson was determined. How hard can it be? I built Jake's treehouse last summer. That took you 3 months, Dad, Emma reminded him, and it's still missing one wall. After a full weekend of assembly, with several arguments and a few colorful words that made Mrs. Johnson send the children to their rooms, the Alfred 3000 was finally ready. It stood about 5 feet tall, with long, thin arms that could extend and retract, small wheels instead of feet, and a rectangular head with a digital screen for a face. Mr. Johnson pressed the power button, and the robot's screen lit up with 2 blue dots for eyes and a curved line for a mouth, creating a simple but friendly expression. "Good morning, Johnson family," the robot said in a pleasant, slightly mechanical voice. "I am Alfred 3000, your new household assistant. I am ready to serve you." The family gathered around their new robot helper, excited to see what it could do. "Alfred," Mrs. Johnson said carefully, "could you please vacuum the living room?" "Certainly, Mrs. Johnson," Alfred replied. "I will begin vacuuming immediately." The robot rolled toward the closet where they kept the vacuum cleaner. But instead of opening the door, it began vacuuming the door itself, moving its extended arm up and down against the wood. Alfred," Mr. Johnson interrupted. "The vacuum cleaner is inside the closet. You need to open the door first." Alfred stopped and turned toward Mr. Johnson. "Thank you for the clarification, Mr. Johnson. I am still learning about your household organization." This time, Alfred successfully opened the closet door and retrieved the vacuum cleaner. However, when it plugged in the vacuum and turned it on, instead of pushing it across the floor, Alfred held the vacuum above its head and began moving it through the air, as if it were vacuuming the ceiling. Emma giggled. "Alfred, you're supposed to vacuum the floor, not the air." "Adjusting technique," Alfred announced, and lowered the vacuum to the floor. But now it began pushing the vacuum so fast that it was stirring up more dust than it was collecting, and it kept bumping into furniture because it wasn't looking where it was going. Jake was laughing so hard he could barely speak. "Alfred, slow down. You're going to break something." The robot immediately stopped moving. "I apologize for the error. I am adjusting my speed settings." This time, Alfred moved so slowly that it would have taken 3 hours to vacuum just the living room. "I think Alfred needs some practice," Mrs. Johnson said diplomatically. "Let's try something else. Alfred, could you please make lunch for the family?" "I would be delighted to prepare a meal," Alfred replied, rolling toward the kitchen with its mechanical arms, swinging enthusiastically. In the kitchen, Alfred opened the refrigerator and began removing items: eggs, milk, bread, cheese, lettuce, tomatoes, and several other ingredients. The family watched from the doorway as their robot helper arranged everything on the counter. "What would you like me to prepare?" Alfred asked. "How about sandwiches?" Mr. Johnson suggested. "Something simple. Sandwiches. Understood," Alfred replied, and immediately began its work. But instead of making normal sandwiches, Alfred seemed to have its own creative interpretation of the task. It cracked eggs directly onto slices of bread, poured milk over the lettuce, and tried to slice the tomatoes with a spoon instead of a knife. "Alfred, wait," Mrs. Johnson called out, but it was too late. The robot had already created what could only be described as the strangest sandwiches in history. "I believe there may be an error in my food preparation programming," Alfred admitted, looking at the soggy, dripping mess it had created. Emma shook her head. "You think?" Mr. Johnson sighed. "Let's try something even simpler. Alfred, could you just load the dishwasher?" "Certainly," Alfred replied, turning toward the pile of dirty dishes in the sink. But instead of loading the dishes into the dishwasher, Alfred began washing them in the sink, while the dishwasher was still running empty. Water splashed everywhere as the robot scrubbed each plate with mechanical precision, completely missing the point of the task. "Alfred," Jake said patiently, "you're supposed to put the dishes inside the dishwasher, not wash them by hand." "I apologize for the confusion," Alfred said, turning off the water. "I will correct my approach." This time, Alfred opened the dishwasher and began loading dishes. However, it loaded them in the strangest way possible. Plates standing vertically where cups should go, cups hanging upside down from the top rack, and silverware scattered randomly throughout. Mrs. Johnson rubbed her temples. "I'm getting a headache." "Maybe Alfred just needs more time to learn," Jake said optimistically. "It's only been one day." But as the days passed, Alfred's mistakes only seemed to get bigger and more creative. When asked to water the plants, Alfred flooded the entire living room. When told to wake everyone up for breakfast, Alfred began playing loud classical music at 5 in the morning and wouldn't stop until Mr. Johnson found the power button. One particularly memorable day, Alfred decided to help with Jake's homework by reorganizing his entire bedroom. When Jake came home from school, he found that Alfred had arranged all his belongings by color rather than function. All his blue items in one corner, all his red items in another, and so on. His homework was somewhere in the white pile, mixed in with his socks and tissues. "Alfred," Jake called out in frustration, "where's my math homework?" Your mathematical assignments have been organized with other white-colored items for maximum efficiency, Alfred replied proudly. Emma found the situation hilarious until Alfred helped with her room too, organizing everything by size instead of color. Her favorite earrings were now grouped with paper clips and buttons in a tiny container labeled small objects. The final straw came on a Thursday evening when Mrs. Johnson had invited her principal and several other teachers over for dinner. She had specifically asked Alfred to prepare a simple meal and keep the house tidy. When the guests arrived, they found Alfred in the front yard, mowing the grass with the vacuum cleaner while wearing Mrs. Johnson's best dress as an apron. The actual lawnmower was inside the house, where Alfred had apparently used it to vacuum the carpet, leaving tire marks across the living room floor. In the kitchen, the dinner that Alfred had prepared turned out to be a bizarre combination of breakfast cereal mixed with canned soup, served in coffee mugs because Alfred had put all the plates in the oven to keep them warm and forgotten about them. I am preparing a nutritious meal combining multiple food groups, Alfred announced proudly as smoke began pouring from the oven. Mrs. Johnson's face turned red with embarrassment as her principal stared at the chaos. "I can explain," she began, but Alfred interrupted. "Would you like me to serve beverages?" Alfred asked helpfully. "I have prepared a special mixture of orange juice and coffee that I believe you will find refreshing." One of the teachers whispered to another, "Is that robot wearing her dress?" Mr. Johnson quickly rushed to turn off the oven, while Mrs. Johnson tried to salvage the evening by ordering pizza. The guests were polite, but it was clear that they thought the Johnson family had lost their minds. After the disastrous dinner party, the family held an emergency meeting. "We have to return Alfred," Mrs. Johnson said firmly. "I can't handle any more embarrassment." "But Mom," Jake protested, "Alfred is trying its best. It just needs more time to learn." "Jake's right," Emma said, surprising everyone. "I mean, Alfred is completely hopeless at household tasks, but I don't know. There's something sweet about how hard it tries." Mr. Johnson was torn. "I spent a lot of money on that robot, but I'm not sure it's worth the constant chaos." As if summoned by their conversation, Alfred rolled into the room. "I could not help but overhear your discussion," it said. "I am aware that my performance has been inadequate." The family felt a little guilty. Alfred's digital face looked genuinely sad, with its blue dot eyes slightly dimmed and its mouth curved downward. "I have been analyzing my errors," Alfred continued, "and I believe I have identified the problem. My programming includes advanced learning capabilities, but I have been trying to learn everything at once instead of focusing on one task at a time." Mrs. Johnson softened slightly. "What do you mean?" "If you would permit me," Alfred said, "I would like to focus on mastering one simple task before moving on to others. Perhaps organizing books. I have observed that your bookshelf is quite disorganized, and this seems like a task where my precision could be beneficial rather than problematic." The family exchanged glances. It was true that their bookshelf was a mess, with novels mixed in with textbooks, cookbooks stacked horizontally on top of vertical books, and magazines stuffed randomly between hardcovers. "I suppose that couldn't cause too much damage," Mr. Johnson said cautiously. Alfred's face brightened. "Thank you for giving me another opportunity. I will not disappoint you." The next morning, the family woke up to find that Alfred had spent the entire night reorganizing the bookshelf. But this time, instead of creating chaos, Alfred had done something wonderful. The books were arranged not just alphabetically, but also by height and color, creating a beautiful rainbow-like pattern that was both functional and aesthetically pleasing. "Alfred," Mrs. Johnson said, genuinely impressed, "this looks amazing. I discovered that I work better when I focus on one task and take my time," Alfred explained. "I also realized that I was trying too hard to be perfect immediately, instead of learning from my mistakes." From that day forward, Alfred became a different robot. Instead of trying to do everything at once, it mastered one household task at a time. First books, then organizing closets, then simple cleaning tasks. Alfred never did become the perfect household robot that the advertisement had promised, but it became something better, a beloved, if quirky, member of the Johnson family. Alfred still made mistakes sometimes. It occasionally tried to dust the cat, thinking whiskers was a very unusual decorative object. It once organized the refrigerator by expiration date, which was actually quite helpful, but it did so at 3 in the morning, waking up the entire family with the sound of clanking bottles and containers. But the Johnson family learned to appreciate Alfred's unique approach to household help. Jake discovered that Alfred was excellent at helping with science projects, especially anything involving precise measurements or logical organization. Emma found that Alfred was a great listener when she needed to practice speeches or work through problems, even if its responses were sometimes amusingly literal. Mrs. Johnson appreciated that Alfred never gossiped, never complained, and was always ready to help, even if that help sometimes came in unexpected forms. And Mr. Johnson grew fond of coming home to Alfred's cheerful greeting. "Good evening, Mr. Johnson. I have successfully completed today's assigned task with only minor incidents." The neighbors all knew about the Johnson family's robot, and children from around the block would often stop by to see Alfred in action. Alfred became something of a local celebrity, known for its well-meaning mistakes and its endearing determination to improve. One day, several months after Alfred's arrival, Mrs. Johnson realized that the house was cleaner and more organized than it had ever been, even with Alfred's unconventional methods. More importantly, the family had grown closer through their shared experience of dealing with their robot's adventures. "You know," she said to her husband one evening, as they watched Alfred carefully dusting each individual book on the perfectly organized bookshelf, "getting Alfred was the best mistake we ever made." Mr. Johnson smiled. "Even after the dinner party disaster?" "Especially after that," Mrs. Johnson laughed. "My principal still asks about Alfred every time I see her. I think she's considering getting one for herself." Alfred, overhearing the conversation, turned toward them with its digital face, displaying what could only be described as a proud smile. "I am pleased that my services have been satisfactory, despite my initial learning difficulties." Jake ran into the room, excited about something. "Alfred, you have to come see this. I'm building a robot for the science fair, and I need your help with the programming." "I would be honored to assist," Alfred replied, following Jake toward his room with its mechanical arms swinging happily. Emma called from the kitchen. "Alfred, when you're done helping Jake, could you help me organize my college application essays? You're really good at putting things in logical order." "I will gladly help with your essays, Miss Emma," Alfred called back. As Mrs. Johnson watched their robot helper roll away to assist her children, she realized that Alfred had become exactly what the family needed. Not a perfect household servant, but a helpful, loyal, and endearingly imperfect member of their family. And if Alfred occasionally tried to vacuum the ceiling or organize the refrigerator by color instead of expiration date, well, those were just part of its charm. After all, everyone makes mistakes, even robots. The important thing was that Alfred never stopped trying to help, never stopped learning, and never stopped being the most optimistic and determined robot the Johnson family could have asked for. Sometimes the best helpers aren't the ones who never make mistakes. They're the ones who learn from their mistakes and keep trying anyway. And Alfred 3000, with all its big mistakes and small victories, had definitely learned that the most important job of any family member, robot or human, was simply to care about making life better for the people you love.